welcome to 3 Inning Fan, the podcast with me, Kelley Franco. It's the first show of 2025, and I am so excited to be spending the 2025 baseball campaign with you. It is freezing cold and now snowing here in the tri-state area of Connecticut, so I put on a sweater and put together an amazing show for you today. And speaking of cold, is Pete Alonso getting a chilly reception from the Mets? And do the Mets need another frontline starter? How about their bullpen? With the Yankees, we take their offseason temperature and see what they still need to add with a focus on their infield, which is still uncertain. And then we're going to hop around MLB because here at 3 Inning Fan, we keep you fluent on all things MLB because the last thing you want is to make a baseball faux pas at a cocktail party. We'll give you a Roki Sasaki update. We'll talk about the DBacks signing of Corbin Burnes, how it reflects on Orioles ownership, and how it's bad for the Mets and good news for the Yankees. We'll talk about just how darn good the National League is going to be this year and how the Mets are going to have their work cut out for them. And we're going to discuss some miserly baseball teams who have been cheap this offseason and naming names. Let's get at it. With the Mets and Pete Alonso, he is still out there, dangling out there even. It's got to be a tough time for him, knowing that he passed up a solid offer in 2023, and now he may not do better. Believe me, I'm an attorney, and I negotiate things all the time, and it's very hard when you get an offer that's within that acceptable range, but you just want a little bit more, so you take a chance and you say no, and you know what? You never know when the entire offer is going to be yanked off the table. And that's what happened to Pete. So Alonso belongs with the Mets, but he may not get his numbers. That would be either the number of years or the number of dollars. And heck, there's not even any chatter about other baseball teams talking to him, at least not that is leaked. And you've got to wonder if the market has gone completely soft on Pete Alonso. Pete belongs in a Mets uniform where he was born and bred, and the fans love him. But I'm not just getting too sentimental like those other sticky Valentines. And if you got that one, drop it in the comments. Pete Alonso, will provide protection for Soto. He can play in New York without wilting under the limelight. We know that. He's a leader in the clubhouse. He's durable. Yes, his offensive production was down last year, but he showed up when he needed to, and they wouldn't have gotten as far in the postseason without him. Pete needs the Mets. The Met needs Pete. The Mets need Pete. They need to get this deal done. There are rumors that the Mets floated a 3-year deal with a high average annual value. I don't know if Pete will take that, if it happened at all. But I haven't heard of other teams talking to him, and we all know that his agent, Scott Boras, is the first to leak when multiple teams are in on one of his clients. So I feel like we would have heard something. Something's got to break soon for Pete. So with him and the Mets, it's going to be about a meeting of the minds, as we say in the legal business, on the dollar signs and the years. And if Pete wants more than the Mets are willing to pay, look for the Mets to move on, and Pete could be left out in the cold. As I said a few weeks ago, can you picture Pete in a Mariners uniform? Some Mets fans are already talking about getting Vladdy Guerrero Jr. at the trade deadline or for 2026. Let's take a look at the Mets starting rotation as it stands now. You have Kodai Senga, Sean Manaea, David Peterson, Frankie Montas, Clay Holmes, and Paul Blackburn. He's kind of a depth guy, and the other depth options are Griffin Canning, Tylor McGill, and Jose Butto. So the Mets have a lot of depth, and that's the way pitching rosters are constructed these days because you need the depth to get around the pitching injuries and the shortened outings by starting pitchers. These 5-and-dive guys, you got to cover them for the back 9 innings, the 4 innings after they leave. So they're doing okay in terms of depth, but I'm hearing some fans say they want the Mets to have another ace starter. And I am not sure I see David Stearns doing that. A lot depends on whether Kodai Senga can stay healthy and pitch like an ace. If he can, I think they may be fine as is. The fact that we didn't see Senga healthy last year, maybe that's what's prompting some fans to say they want another frontline starter. A couple words about the Mets bullpen. So you've got Edwin Diaz, then you have Reed Garrett, Daniel Nunez, Sean Reed Foley, and possibly Jose Butto if he's not starting. But I do think the Mets need some bullpen help. Now, Tanner Scott is the belle of the ball out there. He's a lefty free agent. And if you had him plus your righty Edwin Diaz as the back half of your bullpen, that would be pretty fierce. But Tanner Scott's going to be expensive, and he's not a reclamation project like David Stearns typically fancies. You know who's out there is Dave Robertson. Remember him? Former Met, former Yankee. He's had his ups and downs, but mostly ups. And he's a great veteran presence. He'll be 40 in April, maybe a one-year deal. I wouldn't mind seeing it. And the older I get, the more I root for the old guys. Kenley Jansen, Kirby Yates, Tommy Canley, these are some other names that are still out there. I liked Canley on the Yankees, and it would be just another ex-Yankee the Mets could sign. Are you following me on Twitter, X, whatever you call it, or Instagram? I hope so. It's 3 Inning Fan, or just search me, Kelley Franco. That's an EY on Kelley. If you're not, you're missing out on amazing content and the occasional mouth-watering recipe. Let's talk about the Yankees. New year, new you, new Yankees. The Yankees have always been a team about sluggers. Babe Ruth, Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle, Aaron Judge. Well, now they appear to be a team about run prevention. As you know, the Yankees failed to retain their biggest free agent, Juan Soto, who will now be living his best life in Queens. However, they did do an aggressive pivot. And I am personally excited to see how this newly styled team plays out. Their big signing was 2-time All-Star lefty pitcher Max Fried. Now their starting rotation is Garrett Cole, Max Fried, Carlos Rodon, Luis Gil, and Clark Schmidt, at least if the season were to start today. Then they upgraded their bullpen with a trade for closer Devin Williams. Then they upgraded defensively by signing first baseman Paul Goldschmidt and outfielder Cody Bellinger. I love the new look run prevention Yankees. Goldschmidt will be interesting to watch. He was the 2022 National League MVP, but his offense has since declined. He hit .245 with the Cardinals last season. However, he still had 33 doubles, 22 homers, 65 RBI for them last season, and he's a workhorse. He played in 154 games. Now, a lot of people are saying, Goldschmidt, he's not what he used to be. You know what? He's not. So forget that. He's not going to be what he used to be, okay? The Yankees know that. But considering the meager production the Yankees got from first base last year, all of their first basemen, Rizzo, Ben Rice, and anyone who hopped in there for a game or two, it's still an upgrade. And Goldschmidt is friends with Nolan Arenado. Could he persuade Nolan Arenado to waive his no-trade clause to come and play third base for the Yankees? Now, I know what you're thinking. The Yankees don't need another aging infielder. But what are the options at this point? The windows are closing. Signing Bregman is still out there, but I haven't heard much about it lately in terms of the Yankees signing him. He's been more linked to the Tigers and the Red Sox. And you know what? I hate to say it, but if the season started today, you're probably looking at DJ LeMahieu at third and Jazz Chisholm at second. Does DJ have anything left in the tank? Well, He didn't look like he did last season. He can't be traded. He has 2 years and $30 million left on his contract. He's 37, and he just doesn't look good. He's injury prone. The Yankees could release him or try to put him to work. So if I had to make a shopping list for the Yankees before opening day, and by the way, I am so awesome at shopping, it would be a second or third baseman, some lefty bullpen help because they're all righties out there, and really not much else. You don't replace Juan Soto, but they went in a different direction, and they did it well. Not only did Brian Cashman get his guys, but he got them quickly. Why does quickly matter? Because now agents or GMs can't hold him over a barrel in negotiations. He signed his guys super fast right after Juan Soto got away. So it's January, and I think Brian Cashman is in the catbird seat. He's done a good job. Can I give a quick shout out to some of my favorite listeners? Russ O'Brien, Ocean Doc Scott, Edamame, Pete Dembrowski, and Jeff Cohen, and Diane L.I. Sunsets, and Lita Smith Mines. You sassy, beautiful women, thank you for listening. Let's talk about Roki Sasaki. Both the Yankees and the Mets met with him. The signing window for him will be between January 15th, which is when the international signing period opens, and January 23rd, which is when his posting period closes. So that's right around the corner. I read that 20 of the 30 teams were in on Sasaki. My question? What's wrong with the 10 teams that weren't in on him? Goodness gracious. It's a rare chance to get a major league ready pitcher who could be exceptional on the cheap. Now, obviously, whatever teams get Sasaki will have the complexion of their starting rotation change in a heartbeat. And even though everyone says, oh, there's no guarantee, he's going to go to the Dodgers, let's face it, the West Coast is a fairly good guess. All right, he could go anywhere, but he could wind up on the West Coast. Giants or Dodgers are still got to be a good, healthy guess. But you know what? We're going to know for sure in 2 weeks. And don't listen to anyone who tells you they know what he's going to do. Let's continue this little tour around MLB and look at some other things going on in Major League Baseball. There was the signing of Corbin Burnes by the DBacks. Orioles ownership has really let the fans down here. So in case you missed it, free agent pitcher Corbin Burnes reached a 6-year, $210 million deal with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Burnes pitched for the Orioles last year, and he lived up to the hype. He went 15-9 with a 2.92 ERA. Not only that, but he kept that starting rotation afloat when it was ravaged by major injuries last season, and the Orioles made the playoffs. Burnes made a difference. And the Orioles had new group ownership for last season, led by private equity billionaire David Rubenstein. Rubenstein is estimated to be worth $4 billion. Orioles fans were hoping Rubenstein would be a Steve Cohen lookalike. Now, granted, Steve Cohen is worth about $21 billion, but still, he's rich, he's a fan, and Orioles fans were hoping he was willing to spend. It was only natural that the O's fans would look toward this offseason to see how their team could be improved, and re-signing Burnes was a natural first step. Now, if you paid attention to this, you know that Burnes signed in Arizona because that's where he and his wife live. They have 2 young twins, and he was reported to have turned down more lucrative offers to take the D-backs offer and be in Arizona. And yes, as a side note, when you take the lower offer and it's $210 million, it's not too shabby. Anyway, so let's not put all the blame on O's ownership for losing Burnes, but look at the big picture. Why was Burnes' desire to sign in Arizona news to O's ownership? And if it wasn't news to them, why didn't they move more aggressively to get another free agent pitcher this offseason? like Blake Snell or Max Fried earlier while they were still available, or they could have traded for Garrett Crochet. Their offseason so far has consisted of signing outfielder Tyler O'Neill and a few days ago, starting pitcher Charlie Morton, who's going to be 42 next year. Now, by the way, I am a great fan of Charlie Morton. He's from Redding, Connecticut, so our neck of the woods. So even when he was a Brave, unless they were playing the Mets, I wanted him to do well. So this is not a diss of Charlie Morton. But the Orioles ownership has to throw a little more chum to their base, okay? They did also sign ex-Yankee and Met Gary Sanchez. I mean, that's not a banner signing. And Japanese righty Tomoyuki Sugano. They need to do more. And how about all those young stars the Orioles have? Have any been extended? That would be no. So David Rubenstein is no Mets Steve Cohen. And he's no Dodgers Guggenheim Partners. I mean, who needs a rich guy if he doesn't spend his money? The Orioles fans have got to be mad as hornets. They have all those talented young position players, and they need to be firing on all cylinders now before they age out or ownership fails to extend them. Maybe ownership has a trick up his sleeve. The clock is ticking. And now I would like to introduce a new feature called Why Should I Care? You might be thinking, why should I care about Corbin Burnes going to the D-backs and leaving the Orioles? Well, let me tell you, Yankee fans need to care because if the Orioles are weaker, it enhances the Yankees' chance to rule the AL East. The Yankees edged out the Orioles by 3 games last season, but the O's haven't upgraded significantly, and the Rays and the Blue Jays, who finished 4th and 5th respectively, have not made any noteworthy moves. Now, the Red Sox in the AL East, who finished 3rd last season, have made nice improvements this offseason by rebuilding their starting rotation in trading for Garrett Crochet and signing Walker Buehler. And the Sox have also been linked to Alex Bregman. Plus, the Sox are going to have Lucas Giolito back, who couldn't throw a pitch for them last season due to injury. So maybe the AL East will turn back the clock and feature a good old-fashioned rivalry between the Yankees and the Red Sox. That would be kind of entertaining. And so to continue on with, why should I care? Not only should the Yankee fans care about getting Burnes out of the AL East, but Mets fans should care that he's in the NL now. Look at the big picture. The Arizona Diamondbacks have a fantastic starting rotation. Remember, the D-backs only missed the playoffs last year by virtue of the tiebreaker. Their record could have gotten them in. So, yeah, it's nice to think about how good the Mets are, and believe me, they're good. But the fans have got to think about how good those other NL teams are. The Mets have to fend off the Diamondbacks, the Padres, the Dodgers, the Phillies, and you've even got to put the Braves and the Cubs in the mix there, too. Now, the National League is good. And these aren't just the best teams in the NL. These are the best teams in baseball. We heard chatter last year about the Yankees having an easier path to the World Series, especially when they didn't have to go through the Astros. With the way the NL is shaping up this offseason, the National League teams will be the ones to beat. It's going to be a bear to win that NL pennant. Arizona signing Corbin Burnes, it was smart. It all worked out really well for them. It's a hedge against Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly. In case they leave after the 2025 season, they'll both be free agents. And Gallen is a Boris client, so let's face it, he's not going to sign an extension. The D-backs signing Burnes also makes them flush with starting pitching. And more likely, they trade Jordan Montgomery. D-backs owner Ken Kendrick called signing Montgomery a, quote, horrible decision and, quote, our biggest mistake. Well, that was nice. So could the Mets be interested? How about a reunion with the Yankees? We know he can pitch in New York. So the Burnes signing has ramifications for our New York teams. Nothing happens in a vacuum. And if we're going to talk about how Orioles' new rich ownership has let its fans down, let's not forget to name some other names. Some fans talk smack about the Dodgers, Yankees, and Mets and other big market teams for spending big money. But the fact is, all MLB owners are rich. They can all spend, but only some choose to do so. So what other teams are, as my Aunt Vivian used to say, tighter than the paper on the walls? Well, let me tell you, that cracked up the staff. I'm glad you got a laugh. Ken Rosenthal and Will Salmon of The Athletic wrote about some of these clubs yesterday, and you should go take a look at the article. The Athletic is fantastic. The Tigers have only added 2 free agents, and they each had a 1-year, $15 million deal. That was Gleyber Torres, who we all know, and righty pitcher Alex Cobb. The Pittsburgh Pirates spent all of $5 million on Andrew McCutchen, and that was their only free agent acquisition, so far at least. So just what do they plan on doing with Paul Skeens? Perhaps one of the greatest pitchers of the decade? And what's their plan? Win a game every 5 games? Come on, Pirates. And Rosenthal and Salmon pointed out that 6 teams have yet to spend a single dollar on a free agent. The Marlins, the Cardinals, the Padres, the Mariners, the Brewers, and the Twins. That's a disgrace, except for the Padres. They're not a disgrace because they're a good team, and I bet they have a trick up their sleeve, and they have spent in the past. So let's let them off the hook. But come on. Owners have a responsibility to field a competitive team. Otherwise, they shouldn't be owners. They owe it to the fans, and fandom shouldn't be taken for granted. On that note, let's go to our closer. What's good to eat while watching the ball game, or as it is in the offseason over New Year's Eve, while watching the New Year's Eve ball drop? We spent New Year's Eve, as we always do, with my brother Duffy. I know. What kind of Italian name is Duffy? Or Kelly, for that matter. I don't know what to tell you. My mother loved Irish names. Anyway, so we were with Duffy and his lovely wife, Megan, and Duffy made the most delicious lobster pasta for dinner. And I can take some of the credit on the input because he cooked the red sauce using the tomatoes that we canned last August. I know you were listening to the podcast when we talked about it. When we canned our fresh tomatoes right off the vine. Anyway, so to make this delicious pasta, you first make your marinara sauce. So saute your garlic in your olive oil. And if you like, maybe you add some crushed red pepper if you like it spicy. And then you add your tomatoes and you simmer them up. Now, you need to simmer it a little thicker than you would normally do because once you put those lobsters in there, a lot of water is going to come out of the lobsters, and you don't want your sauce at the end to be watery. So don't forget to add some chopped up parsley or a splash of red wine if that suits your fancy. Then you murder the lobsters. They're best split in 2 while you tell yourself things like, they can't feel pain, even though you know it's a lie. Put them right in the pot and cover it and steam them until a slow death, which will occur in about 12 minutes. Then you plate it over pasta, and whatever you do, don't be wearing a white shirt when you eat this. My personal strategy was to shell the lobster, then excuse myself and go wash my hands, then come back and eat. We enjoyed a beautiful Brunello with this meal. The whole meal couldn't have been more perfect. A beautiful way to say goodbye to the old and ring in the new. That's today's show. We'll see you again soon. Have a great rest of the week. Bye-bye.